now, I'd like to introduce the last segment speaker, Christiaan Maats, who is an award-winning Dutch product designer and physical product designer, something tangible. It's all digital in here, but thank you. Entrepreneur and educator, has put this question at the center of his work, reminding people, sorry, that's a different line. So, Christiaan, please welcome to the stage. Round of applause.
Thank you, thanks.
Sorry.
So I'm going to remind you of some things. You'll find out what that is. Thank you guys for sticking around for the last talk. So many people still here. I can't help but wonder, does it have anything to do with the enormous pile of beer that seems to be available for free at the end of today? But regardless, let's get on with this talk. So I believe life is interconnected, right? I believe people are connected to their social and physical environment through the products that we use, the people we interact with, the food that we use. So I believe humankind is an integral part of life on this planet. But I also believe that we've become disconnected of that reality, right? Humankind have kind of placed itself above nature. We see it as a resource that we can exploit. We have a linear idea of how reality works, right? We take some resources, we make some products with it, we sell it, we use it, we throw it out, we don't think about it anymore. Even in economics, we have this linear concept where we can just chase endless growth, endless efficiency maximization, create shareholder value, and create bigger and bigger monolithic companies. And we're finding out, obviously, that this is to the detriment of our planetary well-being, but also our personal well-being, right? The planet is heating up. We've got plastic in our oceans, in our waterways, in our Earth, and rates of depression, anxiety are skyrocketing, and even the gap between the extremely rich and the rest of us is growing increasingly large. So nature obviously works differently. It thinks in cycles. When you use something in nature and you throw it out, it becomes the source of new life. Nature doesn't work with metrics or efficiency. Nature works with redundancy, diversity, and it creates dynamic ecosystems that allow life to thrive. So back when I was studying, seems like a lifetime ago already, this was already a theme that I was interested in. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow merge these two worlds? Because there's advantages to both of them, right? So what if we could somehow create a product that embodies the merger of these two worlds, this industrial society with its natural roots, and that connect people to their bigger reality? And so I created the world's first biodegradable shoes that bloom. So these were sneakers, made from materials that you could plant in the ground, and there were flower seeds inside of the shoes. And so when you wore them down after a year or two, you could plant them in the ground, and you could have flowers grow from your old sneakers. And so this was my attempt to create a user interaction that would connect people to a bigger reality, to attach extra layers of meaning, and to broaden people's perspective of their surroundings. Now, the way that I think that works, the way that product experience works really, I can explain best by talking about deodorant. Anybody here not use deodorant? That's a smart move. Trick question. Everybody uses deodorant? So let me do a little quiz. You don't have to raise your hands or anything, but play along in your mind. Which deodorant looks the most effective? Now, there's always some variety, but I will hazard a guess that most of you will think the rightmost looks the most effective, right? And that might have, well, actually, that's the first dimension of product design that I want to talk to you about. And that's the utilitarian function. What does the product do? If we see a product in the store, we evaluate a couple of things, right? And one of the first things that we evaluate is, how does this product work? Can I use it easily? Will it be useful for me in my context? Will I be able to use it? And another aspect of it, which informs the first one, is this one. So which word would you say describes which deodorant? There's cheerful, there's tough, and there's luxurious. Also, I don't think this will be super hard. You probably made it something like this, am I right? Yes, okay, I see people nodding, thank God. Right, the gold temptation, it looks very luxurious. It's got gold and it's got black, and everybody thinks it's super high-end. The cheerful one it's got bright colors, and it's like a little guy like going like, yay, so that's why I thought it was cheerful. And then there's the tough, it looks like an engine part, right? It's like steel almost, and it's got like these geometric shapes. It's also got words like extreme odor combat, surge on it. So it feels like, oh my God, I'm never gonna sweat again if I use this deodorant. So this tells you something about the emotional expression of a product. So what kind of character does this product exude? Similar to human characters, right? And of course, on an emotional level, we really relate to products. Products can express a certain emotion, and products can make us feel a certain emotion. Now let's take a next step and think about the person that would buy or own this deodorant. I'll help you along a little bit. So we've got our military man. We've got our stern-looking, but also a bit ambitious-looking, maybe, youngster. And then we've got our happy, creative dude that's just like, everything's good, everything's relaxed. So is this the right way around? Would you place them like this? Yes, no? No. Maybe more like this, probably? Right? So this says something about your cultural style. What kind of style do you have? What's the look that you're going for? Right? So an English aristocrat would look differently from a New York hip-hopper, right? Cultural style. They can both look sportive, but they really look very differently if you think about it. So when products connect with us on these three levels, they become desirable for us. We kind of want to have them. They look really cool. They seem like they work really well. They align with our sense of emotions. And so we want them. And when we buy them, they become an extension of our identity. But can we say that a product like that is truly meaningful? I think not. I think you need to look at two more dimensions of what makes up potentially a meaningful product. So let's go back to the deodorant and look at these statements. This deodorant does its job so you can do yours. This deodorant makes you a winner. And this deodorant takes care of you and the planet. Now, you probably have an idea where I'm taking this, right? The luxurious deodorant that looks like it makes you a winner. This will help you get the girls, probably. The second one, it's called a carefree deodorant, but it looks like it's cheerful, it's positive, it'll take care of you and the planet. And the right one is all about doing the job so you can focus on doing yours. Now that is a statement of purpose, the purpose that you have in life. And the purpose is based on something else, on the way that you see the world. How does the world work? What makes a good and useful life for you? Now, statements like that often begin with, life is about. So, the final round of statements, life is about living fully and responsibly to develop as a person and as a society. Or, life is about doing your duty, it's about good versus evil, you need order and discipline. Or, life is about playing the game to win, you have to be smart to be successful. Now, you won't be surprised that the marketing on these babies endorse exactly the ideas that I think the statements that I made, right? When life is about winning and success, like every idiot can get the girls, this deodorant is amazing, and I want to get success. The middle one about living responsibly, it's 100% natural, it's got softer colors, it's got the animals around it, it's got a very positive, non-offensive feel to it. And then you have to put Chuck Norris in any presentation, I think, right? If you have the chance. The best defense is not to offend, and you put like the karate stance, it's all about discipline and self-sacrifice. So this tells you something about how people see the world differently. So when life is about winning and success, you're going to be working to beat the competition, to win the game, to be strategic and smart. And when life is about responsibility, maybe you're more about in it for self-development or the development of society, somehow making progress on a different scale. And when life is about duty and discipline, you're more about sacrifice probably, denying yourself to fit the purpose that you have that was given to you, maybe by some divine intervention. This is often also either military or maybe more fundamentalist religions are more into this absolute evil versus good type of thinking. So your belief system is how you see the world, and it defines the purpose of your actions, right? So a meaningful product to me not only resonates in terms of utilitarian function and the look and the feel, right? The cultural style and the emotional attitude of it, but it also resonates on your idea of what your social and ecological purpose might be in life, which is based on your belief system. And that belief system really then informs all the other aspects of what a product can be. Now, this belief systems thing, I did not invent that at all. It's about, I think, 20 years ago that I read a book called Spiral Dynamics, which was horribly sort of American self-helpy, but it did resonate because I kept thinking or seeing in the people and the experience around me and even the political news, I kept recognizing these belief systems, these ideas. So I wanted to briefly, and especially in terms of sustainability, it really resonated. So I won't go through all of them, although all of them are interesting, especially in sort of the volatile political times that we're living in. But what we see in the developed world, in the Western world, well, actually globally, is this strategic belief system. And that's that belief system that really believes in achievement. So this is about material success, gaining strategic advantage. And we do that by viewing the world as defined by empirical science, right? Truth is proven by empirical science. That's the only way to do it. It's usually measurements, metric-based, quantitative. You set goals that you want to achieve, and that's the material success that you get. That's basically how most economies in the world right now work. Now, in the 60s, there was a famous counter-movement to that, which were the hippies. Later on, you had the New Age people, but also, on another level, you have human rights activists that are part of a different belief system. They're more communitarian. So what's central to them, their truth is relative, but their truth is defined by people's experiences. So I cannot decide for you what your experience is. I can only listen and be empathetic and try to relate on a human level with you. So you try to appreciate diverse views and give everybody space to be themselves. The downside to that often is if you don't agree with that or if you have a different belief system, then you're outcast because you don't adhere to the sort of the rules of the community, right? So sometimes I think there's during Black Lives Matter there was a post that said silence is violence, and to me that was a bit like, if you don't agree with our rules, then you're outcast. Because maybe I'm silent because I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what to do. Or maybe I'm afraid of saying something wrong and I'll be punished for that. So there's a downside sometimes to the super empathetic communitarian view as well. Finally, there's the integral view, which takes a systemic approach to life and a very process-based approach. So life isn't ever black or white. Life isn't ever right or wrong. There's situations and peoples and contexts where some truth might feel true or be effective, and other situations that another one might be. And the goal of life is to constantly learn and find ways of learning smarter and more effectively so that everybody can have a place in a super diverse network, global network of interdependent relationships. So here you don't think in either or, you think in win or lose, you think in win-win-win solutions, right? And I think we've heard that from previous speakers as well. It's never win or lose. You try to find solutions that work on every level. So what we're seeing in terms of sustainability is, and also the struggle that we see with sustainability, right, is this transition from this strategic belief system to this more integral belief system. And that's what I tried to do with these shoes, right? To create a functional shoe that was comfortable, that did its functional duty, one that had an emotional attitude that was friendly, optimistic, transparent even, a cultural style that would appeal to sort of an urban lifestyle, I thought, and a socio-ecological purpose. My purpose there was to really make people part of the natural cycle of life, to make them feel like they're part of this the natural world again, even though you live in often in a city where you're kind of detached from this world. Based on that belief system, right, that life is this system when we constantly need to learn and progress. Now, some other examples from the market. Smartphones, because everybody has a smartphone. Who here buys a new smartphone every 2 or 3 years? Raise of hands. Oh, that's not too many. How about every 5 years or more? Ah, you guys save your electronics. That's really good. I'm happy to hear that. Actually, my last phone lasted me 6 years, but before that, I kind of bought a new phone every 2 years because I felt like it's old now, I can't get updates anymore, the camera doesn't work as nicely, I can't get the nice, in the dark atmosphere, you get the old cameras don't take the pictures as nice. And in conversations actually recently with friends, the main motivation now to get a new iPhone or Samsung or whatever is, well, the camera's just better. Apart from that, it's really, there's nothing new, right? So smartphones are really made to be sold every 2 or 3 years, right? That's what they want you to do. I don't know if they still do it, but we were taught at industrial design back in the day that you implement planned obsolescence in consumer electronics. So you plan that they will be obsolete after 2 or 3 years so people can buy new stuff, which obviously results in depletion right now of rare metals that go into these products like lithium or indium or nickel. So it creates a huge problem in the supply chain, in the supply of all these materials. It puts pressure on the supply chains in terms of manufacturers, right? Everybody knows the problems with cheap labor. But they do create value, right? These babies are our windows into the world. They're our connection to everything around us. So they do really create value. And the focus that the companies have on creating customer value sometimes blinds them from the socio-ecological value that they take really without giving anything back. So an alternative to that is Fairphone. In terms of user interaction, what they did is they just, instead of using any glue or very specially made screws that nobody has a screwdriver for, they just use a little Phillips screwdriver that you get with the product, and you can take it apart in like 1 minute. And if the camera's old, you buy a new camera from them, and you can just put it in, screw the thing back in. Or if the battery runs, right, the battery always kind of dies out after 2 years, turns crappy. You get a new battery, and you can just repair your own iPhone, or in this case, the Fairphone. You can't make the iPhone. This hasn't. Everybody knows iFixit, the repair website. This is the only phone that has a rating of 10 because it's just so easy to repair. The other thing that they do is they made their supply chain radically transparent. So they show you where they get everything, because there's a lot of modern slavery going on in the mining of all these rare materials that they need. So it's really hard to get that slavery out, but at least they're honest about where are we getting it and what steps are we taking to get slavery out of the supply system. So they're the first smartphone actually that has fair trade gold in them. Another example, which is really famous, but as I'm in shoes, I'm also a little bit into fashion. And the value, obviously, of fast fashion is that they bring designer-grade designs at a discounted rate, which is awesome, because now you can look really good, but you don't have to pay top dollar for it. So there's value there. But in order to make that work, they need volume and they need speed. So they put out sometimes 10 to 12 collections each year. They promote it like crazy. They make usually quite low quality products. And that puts the supply chain under pressure as well, right? We all know the situation where the workers' situations where people are really living under decent wage conditions. What it also does kind of in society, it feels like you have to buy new stuff every time. Like you feel like winter's coming. Oh, I need some new winter gear. It's going to be good. Maybe I can get some discount. Because about a third of products in fast fashion are sold at the actual retail price, about another third at discounted prices, and then another third is just not sold and up to recently was just burnt or discarded because they don't want it in the market. Now, obviously, recently, as sustainability is becoming a hygiene characteristic of companies, they're trying to recycle those things. But the problem is still that it's fast fashion and its system works on creating speed and volume. So it's inherently almost unsustainable. What I always think is a great example, and also because they were recently in the news, Patagonia advertising, "Don't buy this jacket. Just please keep your jacket if it's good, and if you can repair it, please repair it. Actually, we have a service now to help you repair it." Right? And if you're really done with your shirt, just bring it back to us, and we'll see what we can do with it. We'll either recycle it or we'll refurbish it. So they're really changing their way that they make money. And people always say, yeah, Patagonia is always so expensive. Well, yeah, because it should last you a lifetime, and if not that, at least 10 years. So you're getting value that you're otherwise extracting from the social ecological system. And recently, obviously, I don't know if everybody heard, so the owner, Yvon Chouinard, donated the company to a foundation whose sole mission is to uphold the sort of ethical, socio-ecological purpose of the brand. So, as he said, we're now seriously in the business of saving the planet, which means that that system is called steward ownership. So instead of having shareholders that try to extract, right, value, monetary value from a product or from a company which puts immense pressure to perform economically on a company, a foundation becomes the owner of the company, and the sole purpose of the foundation is the social ecological purpose. And that creates the whole intention with which you create products. Social media. Sometimes I feel like we just live through the screen. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in the train going to my old university where I also teach, and there was a beautiful sunrise above the meadows, and there was this mist over the fields, and this red golden light hitting my face, and I thought, wow, it's early, but life is really good. People should really just relish this moment, and I cast my gaze inward, and everyone was like, and it's kind of depressing, but it's even more depressing when you realize, like, you're that person kind of a lot of the time as well, right? Because everybody's like, when you're in the bus, when you're standing in line, everybody's kind of like that. And even at a concert, you'll kind of want to have the video that everybody else is making to put it on social media. So the value that social media give us, obviously, is that we can connect with people even across long distances, and we can share our experiences, and it's all for free. So that's super convenient and really nice. The downside, of course, is that free is never free, and we're being mined for our data. That's one part of it, which maybe most of the time we don't even notice. But social media are also constructed in a way that we keep on scrolling, right? We keep on scrolling. We're basically almost addicted to our phones, just to be able to maybe also shut down our minds every now and then and just kind of scroll through, looking at cute cats. Oh, that's a funny cat. That's a nice cat. Did you see I saw that last week. That was really nice. Those conversations. Now, there's other ways of doing that, right? There's Mastodon. I think it's only have 88 million people. To be honest, I didn't know of Mastodon until recently either. But they don't use any sales. They don't take your data, they don't sell it, so there's no incentive for them for you to keep scrolling. They don't have algorithms that define for you what your scroll behavior should look like. It's just chronological, and it's a decentralized hub system. So you join a hub that's part of Mastodon, and you connect with your hub with its own rules, but you can interconnect with other hubs as well. It's a really interesting concept, and it's not at all addictive. Which then, on the other hand, sometimes feels like a negative thing to say. So maybe there's some work to be done there. And in general, I was thinking about social media and what could be done there. If you consider that between the ages of 15 to 24, 91% of people use the internet for social media. And that social media use is connected to increased levels of anxiety, depression, poor sleep, and that in the last 25 years, levels of anxiety and depression have risen 70%. So I'm going to add that this is a correlation. How directly causally attached this is yet to be understood. But it did make me think, like, what if we could create interactions, social media interactions or otherwise, that had as a goal the well-being of its users? What if you could create interactions that could facilitate dialogue, where now we just cast out, our most extreme visions. Twitter is just like, let me just throw this pile of gunk on you because I don't agree with you or exactly what you're saying. What if you could facilitate dialogue? Or what if you could promote diversity in a way that you took away sometimes the fears that exist between people that don't understand each other's cultures? Or fact-check political claims instead of being an echo chamber for anything that everybody ever claims. What if we have a newspaper in Holland that always does like this little fact check? What if it was like Wikipedia and you had peer reviews fact checking for political claims? Or other ways to improve the democratic process, because I sometimes wonder why I vote for this one party and then they end up either in a coalition. In Holland we have a lot of coalitions with like the other party, where like, no, not with them, come on. And then you guys had some good ideas, but then they're off the table because otherwise they couldn't, be part of the government and rule. And it feels like what if I could vote on coalitions as well? Like I think they do that in Denmark more, or in Sweden. I don't know, I don't remember. Or vote more, learn about decentralized democracy and how can you get local communities to decide on what's relevant to them. Now, I don't have the solutions, obviously, but seeing as this is a UX and UI conference, I figured you guys are the ones that really, hopefully have some light bulbs popping up and be like, there's actually a solution for that. So I'm hoping for that. So, to summarize the shift that we're seeing and that I think we need to make is this relationship between businesses and consumers, where businesses want to extract as much value from the consumer as possible against as low a cost as possible. And it's seems like always a purely financial relationship. And make the shift toward a systemic view where the business is part of the system, and they don't see the consumer just as consumers, but as humans with a life. That I think Mina this morning also related really well. Don't look at just one metric or just one way of how can I sell this product, but look at the complete human and their needs and their development through life. And similar to the social system and to the ecological system, as a business and as a product designer, you're going to have an effect on society, and it's up to you to choose whether that effect is going to be supportive of positive development or takes away from that. So the belief system, the way that you see the world, is really at the root of everything that you do. Why I called this talk how product design can change the world is because I think products play a central role. They are the interface between us and our environment. It's how we interact with our environment, but it's also what companies make to make a living. So it's It's for us as consumers, it's our place of power, what kind of products we choose. As designers, it's our place of power to say, actually, if you want to create a really sustainable product, you need to think about these other things as well. Now, the difficulty often is with the transition to sustainable practices is the owners, right? That's why I put the whole list in there. Usually often owners are shareholders, and they just look at, are my shares making any money? And when can I sell them again? And I think that's a really, obviously, unhealthy way of organizing your financial system or your economy, but also your social system. One alternative to that is what I mentioned Patagonia did, is steward ownership. If there's a foundation at the head of the company, and that decides what's actually best in terms of socio-ecological impact, your whole product development strategy changes, and you get really impactful products. But it's also about other things. Your executives usually define what kind of culture exists in your company, right? Do people expect you to put in 80 hours of work? Is it cool to put in 80 hours of work? Or is it okay to have a sick day or take some vacation leave? I know that in America, I think there's hardly ever pregnancy leave. It's like unheard of, which to me is such a foreign concept coming from Holland. But it seems like there's no room for the human aspect of being an employee at a company, right? So belief systems also there play a role. How do you treat the people that work for you and that you work with? What are the norms that rule, and are they supportive of our development as healthy well-being, healthy people? But also the partners in the supply chain. Classically speaking, you would just say, make this shirt and make it as cheaply as possible because I'm not going to pay more than X, Y, or Z amount. And what I've seen also with companies trying to transition to sustainable activities is that they need to change their relationship with their supply chain partners. And they need to start collaborating and discussing like, hey, what are the difficulties that you guys are facing? Where can we move and how can we find solutions together? So this is becoming more and more of a systemic partnership instead of just like kind of throwing your problems over to the next guy and hoping that they'll solve it. And I think Sebastian kind of touched on that as well. Also in your company, right? There's often, I don't know if that's the same in UX UI design, but often there's a conflict between designers and technicians, or designers and the people that actually have to make it. And the designers are like, no, it should be so this is so beautiful and work beautiful and it's going to be great. And then technicians are like, yeah, but it's either going to be super expensive or really we can't make it. And the designer's going to be like, well, you just don't want to make it. You're being negative. And then the other guy's like, no, you're just being idealist and idiotic, and then that discussion kind of escalates. I've seen it escalate. Whereas you kind of want to have the people sit at the same table from the start and define like what are the parameters that we have to work with, and let's design the solution together. So you create ownership of the product across the company, or at least across disciplines. And then you create products that make a change in the lives of consumers, and those consumers then become humans that you have a relationship with, instead of consumers that you take money from and want to take more money from. And that has an effect on the way that we relate with our environment as well. So when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about the products and services that we can design, it really starts with that belief system. So the question to ask when you start creating these products is, what is life about for you? Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was like a breath of fresh air, and we have some questions. Can you give an example of a really popular global brand or product that you consider levels beyond others when it comes to environmental friendly design?
So I think Patagonia is the biggest example that really just keeps pushing the agenda when it comes to sustainability. On the one hand, you can say they still create products, that are made of fleece, for example, and plastic fleece is really a problem in terms of microplastics. So there's always a negative aspect that you can find when especially with these bigger companies. but the way that the owner now also sort of took responsibility and said, no, we're going to actually change the complete way that we operate in this company, or at least we're going to lock that system in place because it's not going to be dependent on my decisions, but of this foundation. I think that's just a really good example. I'm trying to think of other ones, but I think this is really the best one. Another point to that is also, I think, I wonder if the time of really big monolithic companies has come to just end, and maybe it's more about smaller companies that are rooted in their local environment, that if they do expand, maybe they split up in various cells. I think Gore-Tex does that, that are vertically integrated, so they operate autonomically. I think that's a way to build in diversity, but also resilience, and also a rootedness in local economics and local social environment, so that you don't extract value from local communities and give it to a couple of shareholders, but you keep that value inside the community, and you allow things to grow in terms of diversity, because you get more and more varied solutions that way as well.
Thank you. Have you worked with Gore-Tex or anything like that?
So, sorry?
Have you worked with Gore-Tex?
No, I haven't worked with Gore-Tex, but I read about their sort of cell dividing strategy, and I really like that that approach. Yeah.
How to design for social problems, like to improve the democratic process when there is no client for such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of that is, at least in Holland, there are local governments or municipalities that are interested in this type of topic. There's also just nonprofits that look into these problems. So are they going to be big commercial clients? Definitely no. But there are a lot of initiatives that you can find in your, hopefully in this neighborhood as well, I don't know, but that have a mission to really redefine democracy and explore new ways. There's even, I know in Holland there's an artistic group that are called New Heroes, and they just toured Europe with a program, and basically it was an artistic play almost, but they used the play to qualitatively gain information from the audience to see what types of new forms of democracy might work, and what kind of values people have, and how that differs across different nations as well. And then they compiled that into like this really cool report. So you have to look for the initiatives in your country and in your region.
Oh, that sounds real interesting. Let's take another one. Any comment on the concept of stakeholder capitalism?
Any comment on the concept of stakeholder capitalism? Well, so yeah, like my problem with shareholders is that it's a purely quantitative relationship that you have with the company. So even for me, if I would have shares in a company, I would look at the shares and are they making me money? But I recently joined a crowdfunding campaign for a local brand called New Optimist. They're a fashion brand that are hyper-local, hyper-circular. They use refugees to make their clothes. It's really high-quality stuff. And they wanted to fund the building of a local manufacturing plant to make it in Amsterdam as well. And so I joined them now as a shareholder, and they're actually steward-owned as well. So I'm a shareholder, but they're going to make it steward-owned, which means that if I get my money back with some interest, then the ownership transitions to this foundation to lock in, all these policies. So for me, I'm more emotionally invested with what this company is trying to do, and I have more goodwill towards them to promote them or to help them out. And if it's going to cost me eventually, then okay, shitty, but it's not a huge amount either. So it creates a different type of relationship than if you're purely just on a screen, looking at numbers, which really create a dynamic of sort of value extraction from communities into the hands of you as a shareholder. So yeah, I have problems with that type of capitalism, yeah.
Is there some community you would recommend to join to keep in mind the ideas you mentioned?
I'm a big fan of Donut, the Donut Action Lab, Donut Economics Action Lab by Kate Raworth. But probably everybody knows Donut Economics, or no? No, there's one. Okay, that guy can explain it to you. No. Kate Raworth is a very briefly is a British economist, and she said, okay, let's develop the economy. How did she put it? Let's meet the needs of all within the means of the planet. So she made a donut shape. On the inside are all the sort of the economic or the social performance, the social minima. So everybody needs a house, everybody needs some food, everybody needs an income, etc. But also things like diversity and equality. And on the outside is the planetary boundaries of what it can actually how much we can use while it can still regenerate. So this donut idea really took flight. The book is called Donut Economics, so you can really find it. And it's just a really simple way of visualizing that idea that we need to take care of our social environment and we need to take care of our ecological environment. And she put it out there as sort of a model and a theory. And of course, the big criticism was, well, it's a nice idealist, but how are we actually going to do this? So they created the Donut Economics Action Lab. Amsterdam was actually one of the first cities that adopted the model and has started to develop actually their city as a circular donut economic city. And so everywhere there's these action labs popping up where you can join and you can think about and work on potential solutions with this within this mission.
I have this rising intention to go to Amsterdam again.
It's, refreshing, not for, well, anyway.
Don't you think that deodorants themselves, in your example, have become a marketing component rather than being the product?
For which one?
Yeah.
The deodorants themselves. Yeah. I mean, the deodorants, the tricky thing is with the deodorants, the middle one is actually, it's the one that I use. It's really good. No, it's actually one that's biodegradable. You can literally eat it. I wouldn't recommend it because I didn't try it, but I wouldn't. I just taste, but you could. So they really, for me, they really hit all the markers because functionally, you put it on once and you don't have to apply it again for 6 days, sometimes 7 days. For some people it's 3, for some people it's 6. You know, for me it's 6. This is my testimonial for them. But they take care of the packaging. They really do a good job of truly making a relevant product. The Axe and Right Guard are much more obviously marketing stories, right? Where they really try to appeal to this sensibility. Where I remember using Axe and it just smelled like sweat all day and it felt awkward when I was a teenager and believed that Axe would actually work. It just awkward teenagership was just becoming more awkward because you just felt like your armpit smelled. Right Guard I haven't tried. It looks really effective, but it is a marketing sauce there. So, and that's a good point. You always have to look at, does this product really hit the mark on all these levels, right? Functionally, emotionally and culturally, does it align? But then, does it really fulfill social ecological purpose in the way that it functions and in the way that it's designed as well?
I also got targeted by Nude on an Instagram.
Oh, really?
For one of their ads, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
How can you educate people giving a blind eye when it comes to daily environment-friendly decisions? I
have to read it as well because I have to think about it. I mean, it's tough. I try to always mention it, but not make it judgmental. I think a big problem is that we tend to then judge people for not, making the choices that we're making. So it's also about appreciating that it's a pretty hard process to go through to start making more sustainable decisions. Like I flew over here to give a talk about sustainability, which immediately is like, I know half of my friends are like, and that's sort of, but then I had never been to Budapest and I could bring my girlfriend and it was like, and I can talk to you guys and meet actual people. And then it's much more value than what I also did is just work off a screen and then the impact is less. You don't have the interaction with all the people. And I feel like, okay, so, maybe that counterweighs. So, but how to mention it is I always try to mention it, but mention it in a way that it opens a conversation and doesn't shut it down by being judgmental, I would say.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Cool.
This one got upvoted as well. What do you think about Patagonia donating 100% of their shares to an environment trust? Marketing stunt?
I don't think it is. I think the trust is. I mean, you would have to look at what the statutes of this trust are about, obviously. But I recently saw a discussion about this on LinkedIn as well, and there was a lady there that worked with Yvonne Chouinard, and the guy is like, he drives a really old, beaten-up car. He like, if he comes to sleep over, he'll take the couch bed. This guy like really doesn't give a lot care a lot about all the luxuries that go with owning a company, obviously. So I feel like that speaks for him, and I think putting your company in a trust and writing the statutes in a way that its sole mission is to really care for the environment, that is a huge message to make. So for me, that can't be marketing. No, that seems really hard for me. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
One last one. Sorry?
Always stay skeptical. Always do your research.
All this sounds really great, but how can you follow the ethical approach in poor countries who can't afford being eco-friendly?
One, maybe sustainability has a reputation for being expensive, because it is often sort of Patagonia is a more expensive brand than H&M. But if you do sustainability well, there are a lot of benefits that end up not making it as expensive. The difficulty sometimes is that those benefits are more long-term, where the focus is more on short-term gain, and especially in developing countries, people are trying to survive. So it's really hard to tell them like, hey, no, you really have to buy this Patagonia shirt because that's super expensive, but it'll really last you in the long run. So sometimes I feel like developing countries also need to kind of go through the stages and develop economically. The advantage there is that you can work in these potential solutions sooner. I always wonder if for instance, Africa, I think, does a lot of mobile phone. There's no real telephone infrastructure, so they have a lot of mobile phone interaction. And I think blockchain, for example, is used more often there because that's just an easier way to get trusted funds across. And I sometimes wonder, like, is it also sometimes an advantage to be behind in terms of the development? Because we are so set in our ways in the what we call the developed world that it also becomes really hard to change. So the advantage of maybe poorer countries is that they can implement solutions that work better in the long run earlier on in the process. So sometimes sustainability is more expensive, yes, but if you do it well and you look for opportunities, I think you can prevent your society or your community from going in a direction that is not going to work in the long run anyway, because you already see the examples in the places that we live.
Well, thank you again very much for your answers and your talk too. And this is a small gift from the organizers as a
awesome
token of appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.